Close your eyes and picture this. You're walking through a swamp forest 300 million years ago. The air is thick, humid, and heavy with oxygen, nearly 50% more than today. The trees around you aren't the familiar oaks or pines, but giant horsetails and tree-sized ferns. Suddenly, the sky darkens, not from clouds, but from something with a wingspan wider than a hawk, buzzing past your head with a sound like a helicopter. At your feet, the leaf litter rustles, not from a snake, but from something segmented, the length of a car, with more legs than you can count. In the nearby stream, a scorpion the size of a dog waits motionless, its claws ready to snap shut on anything unfortunate enough to swim by. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a monster movie. This is the Carboniferous period, and these are the nightmares that actually existed. Welcome to an era when insects and arthropods weren't just small annoyances buzzing around your picnic. They were giants that ruled the earth. Today, we're diving deep into 5 prehistoric titans that turned the concept of bugs into something truly terrifying. From aerial predators the size of birds to aquatic nightmares longer than humans, these creatures grew to sizes that seem biologically impossible today. So grab your bug spray, metaphorically speaking, and let's meet the true giants of the Carboniferous. First up, let's take to the skies with Meganeura. Imagine the largest dragonfly you've ever seen. Now scale it up until its wingspan reaches 75 centimeters, nearly 2.5 feet across. That's Meganeura, specifically Meganeura monnier, the largest flying insect to ever exist. Living around 300 million years ago during the late Carboniferous in what is now France and England, this creature belonged to an extinct group called the griffin flies, Protodonata. This wasn't just an oversized nuisance bumping into window screens. Meganeura was a lethal aerial predator. Unlike modern dragonflies that snack on mosquitoes and gnats, Meganeura hunted early amphibians, primitive reptiles, and other large insects. Its massive compound eyes, each the size of a golf ball, contained thousands of individual lenses, giving it nearly 360-degree vision capable of detecting the slightest movement. Its spiny legs formed a deadly basket to scoop prey mid-flight, while its powerful, independently controlled wings could hover, dart backward, and maneuver with precision that puts modern helicopters to shame. Fossil evidence suggests Meganeura had a wingspan rivaling some modern birds of prey, with a body length of 40 centimeters and a voracious appetite to match. The secret to its size? Oxygen. The Carboniferous atmosphere contained roughly 35% oxygen compared to our 21% today. Insects breathe through tracheal tubes, passive diffusion systems that limit their size based on oxygen concentration. With that much O2 in the air, Meganeura could support a body the size of a crow, power those massive flight muscles, and maintain a metabolism fast enough to fuel its incredible hunting skills. But the skies weren't the only place where arthropods dominated. If you think millipedes are creepy now, wait until you meet Arthropleura, the largest land-dwelling invertebrate that ever lived. Picture a modern millipede. Now stretch it to 2.5 meters, over 8 feet long, and make it as wide as a large watermelon at its thickest point. Arthropleura wasn't technically an insect. It was a myriapod related to modern millipedes and centipedes, but absolutely dwarfing anything crawling around today. This creature roamed the coal forests of what is now Scotland, Nova Scotia, and the northeastern United States around 315 to 280 million years ago. Despite its terrifying appearance, imagine a shiny armored tube the length of a car. Arthropleura was likely a gentle giant. Most paleontologists believe it was herbivorous or detritivorous, using its powerful mandibles to munch on decaying plant matter, spores, and seeds from the abundant vegetation. Its body was covered in a hard, segmented exoskeleton made of chitin and calcium carbonate, providing protection against the few predators large enough to threaten it. The exoskeleton was divided into 30 or more segments, each bearing 2 pairs of legs. Fossilized trackways discovered in Nova Scotia reveal that Arthropleura could move surprisingly quickly when threatened, its hundreds of legs working in a metachronal wave-like motion to propel it forward at speeds that would outpace most humans. With no terrestrial vertebrates large enough to challenge it, amphibians were still relatively small and tied to water, while reptiles had yet to diversify into large forms. Arthropleura had free reign over the forest floor. It was the undisputed king of the undergrowth, a tank-like detritivorous that processed the massive amounts of dead plant material falling from the canopy. Now let's talk about the stuff of literal nightmares, Pulmonoscorpius. If you're arachnophobic, you might want to look away for this next part. Pulmonoscorpius was a scorpion that grew up to 70 centimeters long, roughly the size of a house cat or a small dog. Living during the early Carboniferous, around 345 million years ago in Scotland, this wasn't your average desert scorpion hiding under rocks in Arizona. Pulmonoscorpius was fully terrestrial, representing a crucial evolutionary step in arachnid history. Its name literally means breathing scorpion, referring to its book lungs, layered respiratory organs that allowed it to breathe air efficiently without returning to water. This adaptation was revolutionary, allowing arachnids to colonize dry land permanently. It possessed massive lobster-like pincers capable of crushing the early tetrapods that were just beginning to crawl onto land, and a venomous stinger on its tail that would have been lethal to anything in its ecosystem. Unlike modern scorpions that primarily hunt insects and spiders, Pulmonoscorpius likely preyed upon small amphibians, early reptiles, and large insects. Its excellent eyesight, indicated by unusually large fossilized eyes positioned on the top of its head, suggests it was an active hunter that scanned the forest floor for movement rather than a passive ambush predator. Imagine walking through prehistoric Scotland and encountering a scorpion that could look you in the eye while standing on its tail, its exoskeleton gleaming black in the humid forest light. It's no wonder that when the fossils were first discovered, scientists initially thought they might be from marine deposits. The size seemed too outrageous for a land animal. But we haven't even reached the water yet. And that's where Jaekelopterus reigns supreme as perhaps the most terrifying arthropod of all time. Jaekelopterus was a sea scorpion, or more accurately, a eurypterid, that holds the record for the largest arthropod to ever exist. Estimates based on fossil claws suggest it reached lengths of 2.5 to 3 meters, making it longer than most humans of tall and heavier than a large dog. This wasn't just big, it was the undisputed apex predator of the Devonian and Carboniferous seas. Unlike true scorpions, Jaekelopterus was primarily aquatic, though it likely ventured into brackish waters and possibly even onto land briefly, similar to modern horseshoe crabs. Its most terrifying features were its massive chelicerae, claw-like mouthparts extending from its head that could grow up to 46 centimeters long. These weren't just for show, they were serrated, scissor-like weapons capable of slicing through early fish, trilobites, and other eurypterids with terrifying efficiency. The structure of its compound eyes, positioned on stalks, suggests it was a diurnal hunter, using excellent vision to track prey in murky waters. Fossils found in Germany and Wyoming indicate these creatures were widespread across the ancient supercontinents, suggesting they were highly successful predators. Jaekelopterus possessed a segmented tail ending in a stinger-like telson, though scientists debate whether it was used for defense against rivals or to subdue struggling prey. Either way, encountering a Jaekelopterus while swimming in Carboniferous waters would be equivalent to meeting a great white shark armed with swords and armor plating. Finally, we have what was once thought to be the largest spider to ever exist, Megarachne, but the truth turned out to be even stranger than the fiction. When first discovered in Argentina in the 1980s, Megarachne was classified as a giant spider with a body length of 54 centimeters and leg spans that could reach nearly a meter. It was the nightmare of every arachnophobe, a spider the size of a dinner plate. However, further research in 2005 revealed a shocking truth. Megarachne wasn't a spider at all. It was actually another type of eurypterid, closely related to sea scorpions, but adapted to freshwater environments. Living around 300 million years ago in the freshwater systems of Gondwana, Megarachne had a rounded, streamlined body and long, spiny legs designed not for spinning webs, but for paddling through freshwater pools and swamps. It likely hunted small fish and amphibian larvae, using its enlarged front appendages to grasp prey, while its mouthparts tore into flesh. The confusion is understandable. Megarachne possessed a body plan that looked like a nightmare hybrid between a spider and a scorpion, with a broad, flattened carapace and specialized appendages. But this misidentification actually highlights how diverse and successful eurypterids were during this time. They weren't just limited to the oceans, they had colonized freshwater ecosystems worldwide and grown to sizes that would dominate any modern pond or lake. So why did these creatures grow so enormous? The answer lies in the very air they breathed. The Carboniferous period was defined by massive swamp forests covering the equatorial regions of the Earth. These forests pumped unprecedented amounts of oxygen into the atmosphere through photosynthesis, reaching levels of 35% compared to our current 21%. For insects and arthropods who rely on passive diffusion through spiracles and tracheal tubes to breathe, this oxygen surplus was like rocket fuel. In modern insects, the tracheal system limits size because oxygen can only diffuse so far through tissue. But with 35% oxygen, diffusion distances increase dramatically, allowing arthropods to support much larger bodies with more muscle mass and faster metabolisms. More oxygen meant more energy, quicker nerve responses, and the ability to grow beyond the size constraints that limit insects today. Additionally, the absence of aerial predators like birds and bats meant flying insects faced no predation from above. On the ground, vertebrates were still evolving, amphibians were tied to water and generally small, while reptiles had just emerged and remained primitive and diminutive. The arthropods faced an ecological vacuum, and they filled it completely, growing into niches that would later be occupied by mammals and dinosaurs. But paradise couldn't last forever. Around 305 million years ago, the Carboniferous Rainforest collapse began, a series of climate changes and geological shifts that dried out the swamp forests. Oxygen levels plummeted as the photosynthetic engines of the world disappeared, and the humid, stable environments that sustained these giants vanished. Arthropleura couldn't survive without the warm, oxygen-rich, humid environment it had evolved in. Meganeura's massive wings and flight muscles couldn't be sustained with less oxygen to power them. The Eurypterids faced competition from newly evolving ray-finned fishes and sharks that were faster and more efficient in the changing seas. And as vertebrates, particularly reptiles and early synapsids, evolved and grew larger, they began competing for the same ecological niches. These new competitors had something the arthropods didn't: better respiratory systems. Lungs with active breathing and four-chambered hearts allowed vertebrates to grow large regardless of atmospheric oxygen levels. By the end of the Permian period, most of these giants were gone. The Eurypterids survived in diminished forms until the Great Dying 252 million years ago, but never again reached their Carboniferous glory. The age of giant arthropods had ended, leaving only fossils, trackways, and the lingering question of what might have been if oxygen levels had stayed high. It's humbling to think that long before dinosaurs, long before the T-Rex or the terrifying marine reptiles of the Mesozoic, these alien-looking creatures dominated our planet. They weren't just big, they were perfectly adapted to a world we'll never see again, a world where the bugs were in charge. If you enjoyed this journey back to the Carboniferous and want to explore more of Earth's forgotten giants, hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you don't miss when we uncover what came next in the evolutionary arms race. Thanks for watching, and remember, next time you swat a fly or step on a spider, be grateful they're not the size of a seagull or a car.